Daddy, we're doing.
I'm doing a podcast, Dizzy. Hello and welcome to the Too Cool for School podcast. I'm your host, Yannick. This year, the theme of mental health is around community, and I've got a special guest with me, and we're going to do a deep dive into mental health, community, and more, and I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Yannick. Hey, my name is Rickiesha. I am a counsellor. I work with children, young people, and the adults around them who support them. So parents, carers, and professionals. I'm also the founder of the CYP services, which is a community interest company specialising in mental health support and making it accessible for the community.
Okay, great stuff. Can you tell us a bit more about your role as a CYP counsellor and what does that look like on a sort of day-to-day basis?
Yeah. I guess it varies, and since qualifying, I've had to basically try to find my lane. So much of my work is the direct work, with the children and young people. So ages, I'm going to say 5 to 25. With the under 18s, it's very much working with the adults around them because we don't exist in isolation. I very much believe that we're made up of systems, and I always say to my clients or the professionals that I'm working with, the sessions that I'm having with my clients, so the children and young people, they're like 50 minutes. That's 50 minutes once a week. For some of them, it's bi-weekly. But they're then going back out into their system. So their communities that they exist in, their school communities, their families. So it's really important that for that positive change to happen and be sustained, that we are including the important adults in that child or young person's life. So for me, that looks like, doing the assessment with the parents and carers, and then doing also an assessment with the child and young person as well. And it's really thinking about getting their both different perspectives, their different views, seeing where maybe they might agree on the reason for the referral or things that are happening, but then also see where there are differences. And then also being able to explore their background, like who they are as a family, who they are as a person, because again, I feel like that is what makes that individual unique, and that's super, super important. A part of my work also as well is doing consultancy as well. So working with different professionals. So I do a lot of trauma and attachment work. And often that will include, so I'm in private practice, but I also work in the education sector, and I also worked with looked after children. So my consultancy might be going in and thinking about, what is it that is happening for those children, for those young people. I'm thinking together with the professionals, again, because they see them on a day-to-day basis, what's working well, what are their strengths, what are things that they're finding difficult, and actually how can we take a therapeutic approach to things that they're seeing.
No, that's good. And I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned quickly when you was talking about systems, and that's something that I truly believe is key, especially when you're working with children and families, that we're all part of a system, and the approach and the work that we need to do, we need to take a systemic approach, not seeing individuals or families in isolation, but how can we work as different systems to support them. One of the issues that I sometimes find, and I'm not sure whether you've come across this as well, is that sometimes we have families or parents or guardians that for them, if CAMs are involved, if they've got a counsellor, or we should leave it to the schools, and they're not seeing essentially their responsibility or their value in being able to offer that support and help their children, but rather placing themselves as a separate entity to those systems and thinking it's the responsibility of CAMS or social work or school to do that work. Is that something you come across? And if that is, how do you get parents and guardians to see their value in supporting their child when it's their child who is the one that's in need?
Yeah, no, 100%. I do agree with that. And I would say that's something that I more so saw working within the school environment. Both in my role as a counsellor, but also coming from a safeguard and child protection background as well. It is that thing of you're going to school, so whatever the school says, that's what's happening. You need to listen to your teacher. Like, they know it all. I'm not going to help you with homework, but actually it's like, it is your child, it is your responsibility. I think in terms of thinking about it therapeutically, sometimes it can come from a place of, this is so big, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle it. And sometimes parents and carers feel that they maybe don't want to make it worse. So actually, it's best that I leave it to the professionals. I think for me, especially branching out in private practice, it has been very much about that piece of psychoeducation in terms of being able to explore further that parent or that carer's like experiences of mental health support and even like their understanding of it as well, and including them into the process. So for me, for my under 18 clients, what I do is we have 6 sessions, and after every 6th session, we have a parent carer review session. And that's a telephone call that I have with parents and carers. Obviously, for confidentiality, I discuss with my clients beforehand, like we think about, you know, things that I'm going to be sharing, things that they're comfortable with, things that they're not, and being able to feed that back to parents and carers and getting their perspective on it. And it might be that, you know, we're maybe setting little tasks, or it may be that we're inviting them into the session as well so that they're able to basically like voice their opinions and also see what's happening. I hope that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. And with the parents and the families, you know, you work with, I assume they're from various, you know, diverse, you know, background. And I know, especially in regards to like mental health, like there are certain, you know, demographics that, you know, even up until now, like there's a real stigma around mental health. How do you approach like how you support those families, you know, in a way that you're culturally sensitive? And is that something you have to consider, or is sort of mental health and counselling as a practitioner, as a practice, something that you can have a sort of standard approach, you know, for everyone?
I'm going to say no, it's not. And it's something, I'm going to be so honest, it's something I've had to learn. I feel like the training equips you with the foundation, but ultimately it's up to you as an individual to remix it, customize it, and make it work for you, but also for the families or the client group that you're working with. Like, for me, therapy isn't a one size fits all approach. Like, we're all different, we're all unique. So I think it is super, super important to be culturally sensitive, because ultimately that culture is a part of who that person, who that family, who that system is. And we need to honor it as well. And I think a part of that is being able to understand and listen to why maybe there's so much distrust in services, especially within the Black community. Looking back, there's been so many like stories of just distrust, like us not being treated as if we're human. So actually that can play a really, really big part in someone's ability to be able to have faith in the system and the practitioners. So for me, it's being able to, at that initial assessment and throughout the process, really being able to understand that parent and carer and not making them feel judged, not making them feel like, you know, what they're saying or how they're feeling is not normal, but also being able to help them see the impact that it is potentially having on their child or young person. because they don't feel comfortable talking about it or they don't understand it. I remember when I used to work in like one of the schools, I literally had a parent say to me, stop saying the word mental health. Like, I don't like it. Can you say something else? And that for me in the moment was like, wow, like, okay. But actually it was being able to listen to that parent and carer and think about another way and help her to understand. And she also helped me understand why is it that that word mental health for her is a trigger. And then also actually why it was really difficult for her to understand why her child was self-harming.
No, that's insightful, and I think with that as well, is there like an acknowledgement from your side as well that when you go in to work and you acknowledge yourself as, you know, a black counsellor, like a black female counsellor, do you feel that allows you an opportunity also to engage families and children that necessarily wouldn't have engaged with the service? Because historically, you know, the practitioners, the therapists, the counsellors, you know, they've been, you know, white
Middle class.
So you think, like, for families that, you know, come in and they see you and it's like, oh, it's about black counsellor, do you think that sort of brings down, you know, some walls and allows you opportunities to engage with families and communities that wouldn't have necessarily engaged with you?
No, yeah, absolutely. And that is one of the reasons why I set up the CYP services. In my like years of doing child protection and safeguarding, I kept seeing the same families access the mental health support. It would be typically white middle class girls like accessing the services, whereas you would have maybe a black boy who wouldn't. In one of the schools in particular, it was a thing of the black boys would come for check-ins, drop-ins, but when you say to them, like, you've been coming a lot now and maybe think you could benefit from having sessions, nah, miss, I'm good.
Yeah.
But actually, it was like, okay, let's break that down. Let's understand it a bit more. And actually, within that team, a part of me being black is sometimes used as a pawn. But I think I've been able to see it positively because for me, if I'm able to reach out and work with those black boys, then absolutely, I'm going to do it. I think another thing that helps me, because often I get this, is I look young. So parents and carers feel like I can be relatable. So I think there is that connection. It's that representation. It's that seeing, you know, yourself within a service, within a profession. I think also as well, it is really important to not get too caught up in that. And this is me like being honest. I think that's where having good supervision. So all counsellors, all therapists, we have a senior therapist counsellor that we meet on a monthly basis to make sure that our practice is ethical and to make sure that we're just, you know, doing what it is that we need to be doing. So those are the kind of things that you would talk about in supervision. And sometimes it is me going back and saying, well, they're saying this, but actually, given that I am a black female, like this is resonated, like this feeling within me, which can be really useful in bringing back into the work, which maybe a white therapist wouldn't be able to necessarily understand to that level.
Yeah. It's those little nuances, and, you know, us going into this practice and thinking about, you know, race biases and whatever else. You know, I mentioned earlier that, you know, the theme for mental health this year is around community. For you, what does that tell you about society and where we are now in regards to mental health, that, you know, the focus is on community?
Can we just go back a minute? Because I forgot something and it's really important to say. I feel like, you know, when we was talking about like representation and accessibility, I feel like another big thing is language. Like not using jargon, like not feeling like you need to use these big words, like being able to break it down so that other people can understand it. And I think
People as in children or even parents
both,
as well.
both. And I think accessibility is really important as well. That's, again, another reason why I set up the CYP services, because my thing was, what's the point in having all these services if the people that need them the most can't access them? So for us, what we do is we have a tiered pricing system. So we've got our full rates. If you're not able to pay that, you need to like submit some evidence, and then we'll be able to put you on like tier 3, 2 or 1. But then also for every paid session, we reinvest it back. So essentially we want to create a pot so that we're able to deliver free therapy for those ages from 5 to 25 who would otherwise go without.
Yeah.
So
that's powerful.
yeah.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
Because accessibility is super important. Like, people are having to work so much harder now that therapy and your well-being is seen as a luxury.
Yeah.
Rather than a priority or a necessity.
Yeah, no, that's important, and I think this idea of language is well as a key component of the accessibility, because we can't just assume that the children and the families we work with have an understanding of the English language in such a way that they're able to express, or we can truly interpret their needs and what they want. And you just saying that, it's making me think, like, actually, if you're working with a family whose English is like their second official language, and they're having to go to the GP or to CAMS and to a counsellor to explain what their child is going through, like, what how deep and how conscious is the practitioner to really say, do you know what, this could be a barrier. What can I do to ensure that what I'm extracting from the family is a true reflection of their need, and not just assuming because I've
because you worked maybe with one doesn't mean you've worked with like every.
Yeah. And do you know what, I had a funny experience today, actually, where I was speaking to a parent who was explaining to me a situation that's happening at one of the schools that I support at the local authority. And the school had given me essentially like their version of events in terms of like what's been happening, what's the barriers and what the issues has been. And I spoke to the parent today, and the parent was from a French-speaking country. And I said, oh, do you know what? I understand French. I speak a little. My speaking is not as good as my understanding, but let's give it a try. What she was able to explain to me in the 10-15 minutes of me just saying, I'm trying to speak to you in English, and I can hear that there's barriers and there's struggles. What she was able to explain to me and how I was able to respond to her, I feel was a greater understanding and empathy in regards to this situation to what she had experienced with the school. And it was a totally different, in areas, a totally different version of events from what the school explained. But it's about, as practitioners, when we see those barriers, actually, what am I going to do to ensure that, this is about accessibility? I've called you now. I'm from the local authority. I want to work with you, and I can see that there's a clear barrier. What am I going, to do about that? One of the other things that I said to the mum as well is, she said, oh, do you know what? I know you've emailed me and you sent me a text message, but everything that you write, I've had to put into Google Translate and then translate it back into English and send it to you.
Yeah.
I said, just send it in French. If
Yeah.
that's how you feel comfortable, you send it in French, I'll translate.
Yeah, that's your job for you to do.
I'll translate because what I'm trying to extract from you is more important than, anything else. So
Can
I
you
think
imagine?
language and accessibility, 100%.
No, 100%. Can you imagine what that was like for that mum to
Yeah.
have the local authority like involved, and we don't know like what previous experiences are, how she even sees them, but then to have that language barrier and for you to take that time to be able to acknowledge that, that's a really, really big thing. And I think sometimes we just need to ask.
Yeah.
Just ask, like, what can I do, or what could we do to help make this situation a bit more easier for us to work together? Because actually, and when you said the word like referral from the school, inside I like smirked or whatever, because I think it's really good to have the information, but you need to be able to take it and speak to the parent, carer, the child, young person with a fresh pair of eyes. Because ultimately that referral would cloud. You could already go in saying, this is what we're going to do, like, and be really rigid. Whereas actually you need to gather everyone who is involved. And again, it goes back to systems, goes back to that systemic style of working, and think about actually, yes, they're all relevant. The child, young person is in the center. So actually, how can we pull certain bits and work with everybody involved? There's I don't want to say this wrong, but there is a theory, a model that I go by, Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory is essentially what we're talking about. So you've got a child or young person in the middle, or you've got an individual in the middle, and then there's like circles, like layers that go out. And ultimately, it is showing again that, we don't exist in isolation.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important. And that's a really big thing that, you were able to do for that family. And I'm sure it's going to be really beneficial in the work that you guys are doing together.
No, 100%. So mental health theme this year is around community. What does that say about society and where we are at the moment, that the focus is on community?
I think it's allowed us to maybe remember something so basic that we have forgotten, and that is, as humans, we are wired for connection. We are at a time where loneliness is at an all-time high. And essentially, people may be around a lot of people on a day-to-day basis because we're spending more time at work. For some children, it might mean that if mum or dad or whoever's at home spending more time at work, they're spending more time in school. But actually, that time that we're spending with people or in those environments, we are not having those meaningful connections. That sense of togetherness has been almost like lost, especially where I feel like we're in this self-made, I done it on my own, like, era. Whereas I feel like back in the day, people were very much, that's my tribe, that's my community. Yeah, you're going to have your own struggles, but you don't need to almost like do it alone. And it could be something so small. So I feel like, that's what it's kind of hopefully made us remember, that we don't need to do it by ourselves.
Yeah.
We do need that connection. We do need that time, that one-on-one with other people.
Yeah. And do you feel like, do you know what, I'm just thinking about, me growing up, and I'm not sure if you can recall like any, instances when you were a child. I just feel like the structures and the opportunities for community back then, like, was so much more. Like, I could go barbershop, for example. I'm at the barbershop. I'm with the man them. Got your chicken and chips, whatever. You're eating. The barber's talking about whatever. You guys are talking about football, like whatever. You're in there for hours, man. And then everyone's just, talking and doing whatever. And now, I'm just getting in there. Let me get my haircut and go, man. I'm not even trying to
Have those conversations.
chill with you guys. Like, we had youth clubs, we had community hubs where we were, we were really linking up East London. Like, there were so many connections, like there were so many like youth clubs, even in schools. But we don't have that, like, we don't have that now. And even within families, within families, we don't have much of that. And I guess it could link to what you're saying. It's everyone's thinking they need to do things in isolation or, relationship with families breaking down or whatever else. Like how, like for the younger generation coming up where even lifestyle becomes isolation. You can just be on a camera on YouTube and make videos and that's your life and profession. Like you can be home alone playing PlayStation and you're just playing someone online and they're not even at... Before, bring your pad. Because I've only got one pad. It's the one pad that my mum brought. You bring your pad, we're going to link it in like we're playing. That closeness of, I'm going to say you're playing, someone's beating you. Like your feet, like, I wanted to play Pro Evo. I want to see you sweating when I'm beating you. I want to see the anger in your face. Now it's like mic'd up online, everything's in isolation. You feel like you're together, but you're not. Like how do we get that back? Can we get that back?
I feel like we can get it back, but it's gonna take work. Like the online space, I think necessarily, I feel like a lot of the time it's demonized or seen as like the enemy. But when I think about the children and young people that I'm working with, that sense of online that they are tapping into, actually for them, it's a safe space for them. It is a sense of community. I think where we've gone wrong is not having that balance of having those same connections and opportunities offline. So similar to what you were saying, like, I remember being so afraid of doing anything on the street because it could be my nan's friend, it could be who my mum and dad know. They're going to go back and say, oh, I saw your granddaughter, I saw your daughter walking down the road, da, 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 da. So I feel like even that sense of like safety, that just isn't there anymore. Like the under 18s that we would go to, like that was allowing us to connect. So I feel like it's a sense of, for me, when I'm working therapeutically with someone and, there are concerns about their online usage, it is thinking about what is it that they're tapping to, what is it that they are tapping into online, what is that community, what is that like, what is how does that act as a protective factor? So when I say the word protective factor, I mean, how does that lessen the risk of them coming into harm? How does that promote like healthy well-being? So how does that sense of online community, how does that act as a protective factor? What are the risks? What are the concerns? And actually, how can we emulate that online space, offline? And I think merging them together is super important because online does bring opportunities. There's so much now that we have access to in terms of knowing about things that are happening maybe in other countries. But you're right, it can be very much, you're just online. Like you're coming home from school, you're literally just online, going into your room, you're even locking your room. There was a time where the computer was so big that it had to be downstairs. So you might be spending the same maybe amount of time, but mom, auntie, dad, they're passing through the living room or whatever, and they might be able to take a little glance and say,
access, see what you're doing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even want to be there for long.
Literally.
Right.
But now it's very much, you've got a tablet, whatever, do it in your room. So what I kind of suggest to you, families or parents and carers is, could you do some co-viewing together? So actually, is there some time where you guys, not in an intrusive way, because I feel like we need to handle it really carefully because we can cause that child, young person to shut down. But how can you maybe co-view with your child or young person? Oh, what is it that you're looking at? Have that genuine interest. Why are you interested in that? Like, help educate me about it.
So then when we move from like the practical aspect of community and we think about like how the community can build you in terms of like your well-being. Obviously, like you were saying before, like we've come to an era where a lot of people are like, they're on this self-made thing. Like just took out the mud, nobody helped me. Like they want their life to be like a Meek Mill intro. Like look what I've done.
Which is online though as well, because that's what's shown. Like I know we were talking earlier about like, obviously I've started up the business or whatever. when I go on social media, it makes it seem like it's easy. It's
Yeah.
not. So it's being able to step away from that and be like, okay, this is what I'm seeing online. This is what's happening. This is actually the reality of it. And again, it's about that sense of community. Because if I am not able to speak to maybe other women or other early CEOs, founders, then I would feel like I'm failing. When actually, when I have these conversations that we had today, it's like, oh, that's normal. Like, everyone has to start from somewhere.
And in terms of like coping mechanisms, if we move it on to like self-care now, can self-care really be a thing that's beneficial if it's done in isolation? Or do you need, you know what I'm trying to say, or do you need a village? Do you need a community?
You do. Like, it's really important to look after ourselves because we can't, and this might sound cliche, but we actually cannot pour from an empty cup. If you're not okay, then you're not able to like show up in all your other roles and maybe show up for other people. So yes, it's really important to, do some journaling. Some people might have a bubble bath or go out shopping, whatever it is that you're into. But that self-care cannot replace that human connection. So actually, it's thinking about the community. Community, I feel like for a lot of people, they feel like it's something that, they need to necessarily fit into, but it's not. Community could be, one or two people maybe checking in. Like, how are you? How was your day? Like, what are you doing at the weekend? Like, can we plan something together? Like, self-care on its own. There's no point of self-care and like journaling and mindfulness and whatever when you feel lonely, disconnected and isolated. Like, self-care can only get us so far. Like, as I said, we are wired for human connection. Like, it goes back, even if you think about it on a faith basis. It wasn't just one man that was created. So yeah, for me, you need both.
Yeah,
ultimately.
That's important. And when we think about like the older generation, like our parents and grandparents and whoever else, like, do you think in terms of like their mental health and their well-being that they were able to be more resilient and cope because they had community? Or do you think there was like a lot of masking and hiding? Because now, like in adulthood, even when I have conversation, it could be with like mum, older siblings, or you're chopping it up with like some couple aunties and uncles, even nan, whoever. You're like, raw, you guys really went through it, But I didn't see that because I was just out here, eating everything in the fridge type thing. But you guys really went through it. And is it a thing of like the community being there to support them? And that's the difference because that was their protective factor? Or was it a thing of, Bob, I can't show my family that I'm going through this. I'm just going to firm it and, do whatever.
I think it's a bit of both. Like, I feel like back then there was even though they were going through it, like some of the stories my nan be telling me and like some of my other grandparents, like they went through it, especially like coming. Can you imagine? I always say I can't imagine like coming from Jamaica because obviously I'm Jamaican at a young
Windrush, the Windrush people.
At a young age, and setting up this whole life, and then having to send for your family and be providers. Like that is some hard stuff. Like really, really hard things. But I think back then there was that sense of community because you had other people that were doing it. You might have had so-and-so from down the lane who's also come over. And you guys are maybe renting a room in a house. And, you then send for somebody else to come over and then you guys might move. So that sense of community, I feel that was proper tight. My nan's always talking about like the dances that they used to go to as well. They sounded lit.
Yeah.
Like proper. Like they would go to work, make sure the kids were fed, Everyone's got a new dress, new frock. They are
Yeah.
raving it up.
They're outside.
They are literally outside. And similar, like, when I think about my parents, like I was also saying to you earlier about my dad and him having his own business. And I was like to him the other day, you make it look easy. And he's like, no, because you're my child. I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yes, there was that sense of community. But what you've said in terms of masking, I feel like that was really big as well. Like, that stigma was huge back then. I feel like, and I always say this, we've come a long way in terms about thinking about mental health and speaking about it, awareness, etc., etc. But I think in becoming maybe more aware, we've lost that sense of community and that sense of togetherness and just basic connection.
What do you mean becoming more aware?
I feel like,
The woke people.
don't be getting me.
That's what
don't be
that's
getting
what
me.
Donald Trump will say.
No, it's not even. Maybe.
Like I feel like I get what you're saying because like mental health and all of these things have become like
A throwaway term.
no, they become mainstream. Mainstream in a sense where if you was going through it, sometimes it could have been a thing where you just felt like this was part and parcel of life, that, you know, you got to struggle. Or they didn't have terms for it and labels and, you know,
Or they didn't
whatever
feel
else.
safe going. So maybe it could be that actually on a Friday they know, or on a Sunday, again, Jamaican, like rice and peas, they all know that the family's coming around. So for them, maybe that maybe couple hours was their sense of relief. So they might have been carrying whatever they're feeling for the whole week, but they know on a Sunday they're going to eat some good food, play some games, like everyone's going to chop it up and then start the week again. Whereas I feel like now there isn't that sense of that Sunday togetherness. Because people are working. People have to work more, so there's no time for it.
And what's really underrated, whether it's through like your neighbours, your family, faith groups, you know, church, mosque, or wherever you go, that especially back then, that community sense allowed you to benefit from conversations, check-ins, or group activities that was essentially like therapy.
Absolutely.
You know, therapy. Before it got to the point where now they've made mental health this whole thing and people have a stigma about it and they want to be doing things in like, you know, in secret or privately or whatever else. But you could just have those conversations. You know, you could just have those conversations and
I think that's where the accessibility comes into it. Because I always say or try to acknowledge that not everybody is ready to step into my therapy room or see me online. But actually, again, with my organisation is thinking, how can we make mental health a part of everyday life? How can we bring that into the community? We had an event for Children's Mental Health Week, which is in February, where it was about like being able to offer a creative outlet to parents, carers and their children to create that sense of connection, that time together where they are ultimately like building a tree about who they are. Because I think that's another thing of community as well. It allows you to...
that tree of life.
Yeah, tree of life, basically. But I flipped it and called my family tree of me.
Yeah.
So going through, looking at your strengths, looking at things that maybe like who you are, like your roots. And I feel like taking it back to community, that's what that does. Like having those conversations will help somebody to feel seen, feel heard and feel understood, which for a lot of people today, they don't have. And that's where the sense of loneliness and isolation and is not there. I feel like being able to have a community that you feel safe and can show up authentically as yourself, that builds a sense of trust, that also builds a sense of identity, and ultimately, if you think about children and young people, the sense of resilience, that even on those tough days, there's people that I can go to and then they are able to take that into their adulthood, because we're not taking it away. Life is hard. But when we think about the older generation, they maybe had those sense of communities, or even for us, like we had those hubs, those groups that we could go to. Whereas now it's very much, it's online. And actually those, not a lot of the time, but some of the time, those connections online, we don't know if they're genuine. You don't know how safe they are. So that's where the risk comes in. And that's where sometimes, you know, children, young people, even adults can go into themselves because they're living online versus living in offline, living in a reality. I hope that made sense. I was going all over the gaff.
No, it does. And I think, you know, when you're speaking about safety, that's so important because you need that psychological safety. You need those spaces to allow people to be vulnerable, to allow people to be their authentic self. And I think, you know, when it comes to mental health and the community, that's where a lot of people struggle because, like, I know I've got various pockets of friendships. I know who I can go to and be like, yo, man, them, yeah, it's peak over here, man. This is what I'm going, and I'm super vulnerable. Like, the stuff that I'm saying to them is graveyard stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? But then there's other people, I ain't saying nothing to you, man. Let's just keep it.
Yeah, like we can chop it up, we can go out
Let's
together.
just keep it, you know, footy and whatever videos you're going to send in the Instagram group chat. But beyond that,
it's not.
Because I've not created that space around you. You know what I'm trying to say? To feel vulnerable, to feel like I can be my authentic self and have these types, you know, of discussions with you. And even that's only come from adulthood. That's only come later on. But if I'm talking, when we're young, we're not even encouraged to have, like, opening up. That was, maybe now it's different, but when I was growing up, that wasn't a thing. So,
especially being a black male.
Yeah, that
like,
wasn't
why
a
you being
thing.
soft
So
for,
from as long as I can remember, I never remember having conversations with anyone where I'm opening up about my feelings. Not until, I'm talking late. I'm 35 now. We could be saying maybe 28, you know, maybe 27, 28 onwards. Because before, who am I chatting to?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? Again, everyone's different, but the background that you're from, the community you've come from, when we're, you know, people see me in a different, now all of a sudden it's like, huh? What do you mean opening up? Like, no, that's not me, man. You know how I stay. I'm still so and so.
You've got that role that to almost like play to uphold. It's really good to hear that you've got those spaces
100%.
now and you feel comfortable.
But once I opened up, and the next man was like, yeah, bro, me too, man. And then Donny over there said, bro, you think it's just you? I'm
how
like,
powerful
yeah.
that one
like, okay.
conversation.
I'm like, okay, we need this. Like, people need to be, you know, people need to be like talking and community and communicating.
And that's not in the therapy room.
Let someone dive deeper and, you know, and dig in.
I think a lot of the time, sorry to cut you, but my brain, like, as we're talking, is kind of like firing. But a lot of the time I can say, like, to my clients and even their parents or their carers, a lot of the time it can be easier to speak to someone that's a stranger. So like a therapist, counsellor. Because sometimes it's like when you tell the people closest to you, you might have not been feeling your best. You might have been down so bad on a Monday. But then for the rest of the week, you've got everyone checking in. How are you? That was Monday. Like, I'm over that now. So I guess it's really important to also maybe have that separation. And be comfortable and be able to bring it up when and where you want to. Because I think it's coming out of a place of love and care, like wanting to check in. You're really worried. Like, what you shared with me on Monday was proper dark. Like, how are you today? But some people, it's like, I just wanted to share on that day and keep it moving. Like, I don't want to keep revisiting it. And if I do, like, I'll bring it up. So I think having that balance is super, super important as well.
And what advice would you give to someone who, and I say someone, but everyone, I feel like everyone goes through seasons. Everyone goes through seasons where, you know what, you're good and, you know, whatever else. And then you go through seasons where, you know, like you're really struggling. And the seasons could be long seasons. They could be, you know, short seasons. Like, what advice would you give to someone who is a community to others, who is someone else's community? Like that person who they're always pouring out, checking in, how you're doing, you know. But when it comes to them, you know, old school BlackBerry, man, black screen. It's like, oh, why they got black screen? Like, I want people to know I'm out. Instagram's deactivated. Like, what advice would you give to those people that they're the community for others, and they do it with, you know, they do it authentically. It's not about, oh, I'm doing it for show, I'm doing it for the socials, I'm doing it because I love you. But when it comes to that being reciprocated to them, when it comes to them being the recipient of that, they either struggle or they just close off and whatever else.
I guess the therapist, counselor in me is thinking about maybe what is it, or how do they see themselves? Like, do they see that as their role to be caregivers and show up for other people? And if so, where does that come from? Does that come from, you know, childhood experiences of maybe having to parent their parents and be there and always be like, you know, the child that was okay, that was good? So I feel like, yeah, that would be a part of it. The other part I would say is, you know, for them to be aware that they can't constantly give out everything to everyone else, but then not have a sense of support or check-ins. That's not healthy. You can't carry everyone's load. Even as a professional, like, as I said, we have supervision. I'm sure, like, in your role, you've got line management meetings or whatever, and that's your chance to offload. I feel like it will also be important for that person to know that what they're doing is really good, being there for other people, like, they're really important, but they also need to show up for themselves, and they also deserve that care, that love, that support that they're putting out to others.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes people in those positions feel like maybe they're not worthy of that support. And maybe they don't want to also burden other people. But I feel like community is understanding and realizing that we can share with others. And if it's maybe that they don't feel comfortable sharing with their immediate circle, maybe seeking some professional mental health support.
No, that's powerful. And I just wanted to end on a final questions. For someone who's going through, so I'm going to ask this question in two parts. Yeah. The first one is for someone who's going through, you know, whatever difficulties that they're experiencing, and they want help and they want support, but, you know, let's say they're from a faith background, they're Christian. Like, what advice would you give to them around seeking support in terms of their faith and also seeking professional help? Because that's conversations that I've had with people where it's like, oh, I'm just going to lean on faith. Or because if I'm seeing a therapist, if I'm seeing a professional, you know, is that me essentially saying that God can't see me, you know, through this? That's the first question. And the second question, as a practitioner of faith, how do you see yourself in your profession, and how does that influence you in your practice? So I know that's two
Chunky
chunky questions to end with.
Wow. I'll go to you first, what you said about, you know, someone maybe questioning, and it sounded like almost like that conflict of their faith and having faith within their faith, but then also being able to seek support. I think it's important to acknowledge that feeling of maybe being torn between where do I go, and not suppressing that. But then you can't say to someone start therapy, because it has to be when they're ready to start it. It has to be a journey. I think that question is a really difficult question to kind of unpick and almost be able to say it in one way. Again, I would, if that was maybe someone that I'm working with, I would maybe want to explore a bit more about how they see their faith, what it means to them. I guess within their family systems, how that faith is seen as well. Because I think that's really, really important, and that those experiences of family and those views and childhood experiences, they can very much shape like individuals and how you see the world and how you think you should almost like behave. And again, I'd also want to explore, I guess, maybe their faith that they're operating in. So thinking about, for instance, maybe the church. What is their church views of mental health? Because all of those different perspectives can influence how someone sees it. So I feel like, yeah, for me, that would be the starting point, to just maybe explore the different perspectives that are surrounding them.
Yeah.
And maybe for us to try and see whose maybe voice or whose maybe views are they taking on, how they're feeling about maybe seeking support. Is that from them, or is that from the people around them? I hope that.
Yeah, that's
But
very
it's,
helpful.
yeah, it's a really deep question, and you have to be also really sensitive as well when you're working with faith and identity. At the end of the day, like I said, this could be something that is fed to them. This is how you should be. This is how you must be. So for you to want to go in and just dismantle it and be like, no, they're wrong, like, don't listen to them, you need to, that can be very damaging.
Culturally sensitive, faith sensitive as well. That's important. Yeah.
And I learned so much from my clients.
Yeah.
Like I think in the beginning I was a bit scared to be like, oh, I don't know, I just nod along. And that's kind of how I was as well as a person. But now I'm be like, can you tell me a bit more about that? Or what does that actually mean?
And how does like your faith influence you in terms of you as a practitioner?
I feel like for me, it has made me cleave onto my faith even more. Because I can have like doubts about whether I am in the right profession, if I'm doing the right thing. Like I never want to cause, I feel like because I'm working with children and young people, they're so impressionable. I never want to cause any harm to them. Obviously to my adult clients as well, but there's something about that younger client group. So for me, it's really drawn me closer to have faith and have that trust that he will and he has orchestrated all my steps to up until where I am today. I've always been the youngest in my profession. So yeah, and being able to like trust that process for me has been really important. But then it's also important for me to not like put that on to anybody else who may be questioning their faith or may not necessarily be where I am. And again, that's where supervision comes into it. That's where me being able to have those self-care moments, have those connections and be able to, just reflect is super, super important. But like I said to you earlier, this journey of entrepreneurship, self-employment has been really hard. So I'm so thankful, so blessed that, Yah has not only put me in spaces, but has made my support system who they are today. Like for me, it really does take a village to raise a child, to raise an adult, and to also help raise a business as well. Like community for me has, yes, I got my mum and dad, like we're proper locked in, but it's also been my grandparents. They have been top tier in my upbringing. My aunties, my cousins, even those aunties and uncles that aren't blood related, but they're family friends. So when I say that community is that super important, I'm not just saying it for the sake of saying it. Like, it's a lived experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Thank you very much. It's been an amazing and insightful episode. It's been great having you on. That was the Too Cool for School podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media platforms. Thank you.